Hello, everyone. Tiana Vanderhei here, host of the Refined Redhead podcast. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Sam Kirby, host of Cinema Stories here on Public House Media. Thank you for tuning into the following broadcast here on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Cinema Stories, where we talk about movie and TV news and reviews, and maybe, just maybe, we'll learn a little something about ourselves. If not, then maybe I made you laugh a couple of times. I don't know. New episodes air bi-weekly on Tuesdays. Thanks again for checking out the totally spectacular following broadcast here on Public House Media.
Throughout history, the course of sports has been shaped by one thing: the fans.
From the moments you never dreamed of,
saved the USA's life in this World Cup! Hall, the runner! Loose ball! It's good! Gonzaga! The flipper still fits!
To the moments that still give you nightmares.
Behind the bag! It gets through Butler! Here comes Knight and the Mets win it! He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl! Brady has his fifth!
through the good and the bad, fans have helped change the games we watch and the players we love.
They may not be the most logical people.
You are a factory of sadness! I'll see you Sunday.
But they know their teams better than anybody.
They'll blow in the ninth.
You may not always see them, but you know where to find them.
After all, there's nothing quite like the view from the cheap seats.
Broadcasting as part of the Public House Media Network.
Grab a chair and enjoy all there is in
the cheap seats.
Hey Keith, how you doing on this July 4th? It is a great American holiday, great day to be an American, and it is another birthday for this fantastic country. Are you ready to celebrate?
Happy birthday, Uncle Sam. I am very much looking forward to this 4th of July. I got some red, white, and blue popsicles in the fridge, got some steaks ready to go on the grill, a couple of cold ones in the fridge. I'm ready to go on this 4th of July. Let's celebrate America.
Absolutely. Keith, you got any big plans today? Anything special you're doing for the holiday?
Just enjoying the weather. My wife and I are going to hang out a little bit, see some friends, probably do a rooftop party in Wrigleyville with some friends. That should be fun. Max, how about yourself?
Well, I am taking a break from my regular job of broadcasting baseball games to go to a baseball game and enjoy it as a fan. I got tickets to the Nationals later today.
What's more American than going to a Washington Nationals game on the 4th of July where they have president races and everything like that? Tell me you're going to take your shirt off, eat a hot dog, and have a cold one in the bleachers in the outfield there. Tell me that's what you're going to do.
I'll tell you this much. Nobody wants to see that, but sure, why not?
Well, there are a lot of things that people don't want to see while going to a sporting event, but you forfeit that right to what you want to see and what you don't want to see when you go out in public. So you know what? You can be that experience for everyone, Max.
Okay. I'm normally the guy that laughs at afterward with the people who watched similar events. I'd rather not be that story for someone else.
I think you've been that story. You just haven't known it because nobody laughs at the person to their face, but later. So you could have been that person and you don't know, Max.
Wow, Keith. Wow. We are starting off this Wednesday morning with some salt on this wound. Good morning and welcome to the Cheap Seats Wednesday show. I'm Max Wolpoff. That is Keith Hoehne, who we're probably not going to like each other by the end of this. The people not liking each other as we hit around the sports world. John Tortorella, the coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets, went off a little bit on his former player, Jack Johnson, after Johnson basically said, I'm happy to finally be part of a winner, and Tortorella said, what?
Well, I don't think Jack Johnson was completely off base on his comment there. Obviously, he's going to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a proven winner. obviously, having won 2 out of the last 3 Stanley Cups. But we all know who the most recent Stanley Cup winner is, don't we, Max?
Washington Capitals. Damn right we do.
So it's easy for Jack Johnson to go to a different club that has the history of winning as Pittsburgh does and completely rip his other team. I don't know why he would do that, having the history that he does with Columbus, why muddy the waters there. But Tortorella, you know what? He did not like the comment, obviously, as you mentioned, and he kind of let Jack Johnson have it.
Yeah, and this was in a phone interview picked up by The Athletic about them calling Tortorella and saying, hey, you got something to say about this? When you ask John Tortorella if he has something to say about this, the answer is yes. I don't care about his press conferences when he loses about how short they are, which are a common punchline. No. John Tortorella always has something to say. It may not always be nice. It may not always be good, but he always has something to say.
It's kind of like Terrell Owens, giving Terrell Owens the mic at a press conference and saying, hey, go off on something for us for about 10 minutes. We need something for you. Just go ahead. Talk. And that's kind of what they asked him to do, and he delivered, right?
Man, it's one of those things that you would expect a person like that who's just able to talk at length about some things to have a podcast. Could you imagine that? John Tortorella having a podcast?
That would be great.
Oh, it'd be fantastic. I'd at least listen to the first episode.
Yeah, excuse me there, I had a tickle in my throat. Giving anyone the mic that has that personality that's able to go off at any moment, giving them the controls of a microphone, that would be incredible. I would pay to listen to that.
Ooh, I think we may have just hit on something
there you
here.
Go.
Speaking of making a lot of money, Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell are going to fight for the 3rd time, and yeah, I'm already bored.
Yeah, I'm already bored too. I really don't care. These are 2 older guys, really looking for a paycheck. And hey, more money more money and more power to them. If they can get a nice payday out of this, say like, hey, neither of us have much left to offer the fighting world, but some people will watch and will get paid for it. So let's go at it for round 3. Hey, why not? Like I said, more power to them. I don't care. Like it seems a lot of people don't care. It's kind of, you had the announcement and then the initial response from a lot of people was wah, wah. So, it's great that they're going to do it, but I, like many other people, really don't care.
Yeah, their last fight was in 2006, 12 years ago. So it's not like this is exactly in recent memory that they can throw to. But we're going to head and throw to something a little more recent and a little more pressing. We have Public House Media's own Baxter Colburn joining us to discuss the World Cup, which has been crazy, not so stupid for the last few weeks, and it has been gripping must-see drama for all of it. Stay tuned here on Squadcast. You're listening to the Public House Media Network's Cheap Seats.
Tiana Vanderhei here, host of the Refined Redhead podcast on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast. Once you're done with this episode, you should definitely come check out my show, the Refined Redhead podcast, where we talk to real people about relevant information in hopes of inspiring you to chase after whatever dreams you've set out to accomplish, persevering through whatever obstacles are in your way. A new show comes out bi-weekly every Tuesday, so don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of the Refined Redhead podcast. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hi, this is Baxter Colburn, host of the Verse of the Day podcast here on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Verse of the Day, where we take a look at real-world experiences and applications to one Bible verse every Monday through Friday as we get an idea of what it looks like to be a little bit better of a Christian and how we can make this world a better place, one verse at a time. I hope you'll join me every single Monday through Friday right here on Public House Media. I hope you'll subscribe by going to Apple Podcasts or wherever you find good podcasts as well. Once again, thanks for tuning in to the following broadcast here on Public House Media.
One life, live it up, cause we got one life. One life,
Cup, and this is the elimination round of the World Cup. Some crazy games have happened, some amazing goals, some amazing fouls and moments, and all brought to us exclusively today. We are talking about it here on Squadcast. Welcome back to the Cheap Seats. Thank you for joining us today. Baxter Colburn has joined us. Everybody, a round of applause.
Oh, you're too kind. You're too kind. You're too kind. Thank you.
Baxter, what's been your favorite moment of this World Cup so far?
Realizing that your brother has crazier hair than you do, Max.
Oh, wait a minute.
I think that's definitely been one of my more interesting revelations about this World Cup. But actually, on the soccer field, is that what you wanted to talk about? Is that why I'm here? Not to compare the Wolpoff boys' hair there. Boy, oh boy. This tournament's been interesting from a lot of reasons, and I think it's been great because it's showing us that soccer is not just a big nation sport anymore. Anybody on any given day can hold on. It just really depends on who wants it more, and we're really finding out about a lot of teams and about a lot of players, honestly, and you can't just skirt by anymore because you make, $200 and some million a year.
Yeah, because soccer isn't the NBA, which we're definitely going to get to later in this podcast. Are the big nations ruining soccer? My column.
Are the big nations ruining soccer? I think you got to ask the question of what do you define as ruining soccer, I guess.
Well, if you ask certain people, it's the money, and I mean, I don't know anymore. But I think the world's game, at least on the field, is some of the most entertaining soccer we've ever watched. And if you've been following on Public House Media's Your Soccer Passport, of which Baxter Colburn has alluded to, my brother is a part of, yeah, this has easily been one of the best World Cups to follow.
Yeah, and I would completely agree with you on that too, because, in what alternate universe do you actually see Russia go head-to-head with Spain and actually hold them off and then beat them in penalty kicks and look like the better team for most of the match as well too? I think what we're seeing is this transition of power that these nations that used to just think, well, because I'm Spain, because I'm Argentina, we're just going to find ourselves in, the semifinals, and then we'll figure it out from there. And, the rest of these little nations we're going to have to deal with, yeah, we don't really care. We just know we're going to be in the last four teams and then get to the World Cup. It's not that way anymore. I mean, Japan, aside from a meltdown, they were very close. They were up 2-0 against Belgium, a team that many had picked to win the World Cup. And then obviously Belgium flexed their muscles and said, now listen here, we actually need to wake up and do this and win, and they didn't. I think that needs to be commended as one of the best comebacks in this tournament so far. But the little nations of Japan and other nations that continue to kind of pull out and say, look, we're a good club, a good team. Sweden has been surprising as well too, among many others. But it's amazing to see the Senegals and the Perus and these other teams that were really trying to make a difference, and we're very close to doing some high-level stuff that just couldn't pull it off right at the end.
Now, Baxter, do you this is Keith, by the way. Hey, Baxter.
Is this Keith from Coffee with Keith and Katie?
It is. Wow. Great plug there. I love it. When you watch these teams, and you mention, the teams that and the big countries that think that they can just skate by on their name alone, do you think it's that, or do you think that the expectations are so high that they feel the pressure and they're playing a little more tight, and these other teams that really have nothing to lose seemingly are playing a lot more loose, just kind of playing their game because they know anything they do will be a surprise?
I think that's exactly what it is, honestly, because like I was kind of saying before, I think the Uruguays, the Spains, the Portugals, the Frances, they expect to go far in the tournament. So I think they kind of just toy around and get through the group stage and say, look, as long as we get through, we don't necessarily have to win the game, win the group. As long as we're at least in the top two, we're fine. We might have an upset that comes out of nowhere, and somebody might be surprised and say, oh, they're washed up. This is the year that they finally folded in, It's very possible. We were saying this conversations with Iceland as well too early on in their group stages when they tied Argentina. People all of a sudden were all jumping on the Iceland boat and doing the Viking clap, and all of a sudden they're like, Iceland's going to win the World Cup because they tied Argentina.
Because of a tie.
Argentina's sitting there going, listen, guys, we tied against Iceland. Then they got blown up by Croatia, but then it was Messi saying, okay, enough of this. I'm going to score, off my thigh and off my foot with the most ridiculous first two touches ever seen, I feel like. And then we're going to go through. Yes, they didn't get it done in the knockout rounds, but it was still that last game that they knew, okay, we need to do something here, and they stepped up and did it. But people are still forgetting, and I think kind of skirting it under the rug a little bit, that teams like Senegal, teams like Iran, were a goal away or inches away or mere feet away from going through, and big nations almost didn't even get through. Mexico almost didn't even get through, and I'm sure they probably would have wished that wasn't the case at this point after the thrashing Brazil put on them. But you look at some of these small nations, they were mere moments away.
Yeah, you touched on Mexico and the Brazil match, and one thing that, kind of off the pitch that really made some headlines was Mexico's coach's reaction to Neymar's theatrics, calling them an embarrassment to the sport. A lot of people say, there was a cheap shot on Mexico's side, and Neymar was really milking it. What do you, and there's been a lot of news about a lot of guys taking some pretty ridiculous dives, but this one specifically, what do you make out of this with Neymar and Mexico?
See, I don't know how you guys played sports growing up or still play sports. I was always under the assumption that if I'm actually hurt, I'm going to stay down. If I'm not hurt, I'm going to get back up and I'm going to keep playing. And this has probably always been my biggest qualm with playing the game of soccer. As much as I love it, and as wonderful I was able to do it for so many years at a fairly high level, that was the one part that always bothered me the most about players that I would play with or against, is when they would get, a butterfly would land on them, they'd fall like they just got shot in the head 3 times. It's like, come on, guys. It's like, just, you need to stay up and ride the tackle and play through. More often than not, the teams are so conditioned that you're going to fall that when you stay up, you have a better opportunity to catch them off guard and score a goal or keep the move going. In this situation with Neymar, did he get a cleat to the ankle? Yes, we saw that on the replay. I definitely feel like anybody would have been like, that, ouch, that hurts, what are you doing? But to play it up that much, and you can see that it was dramatized, because moments later, he's the reason they scored their first goal. Who is that comes flying down the left side? Oh, that's right, it's Neymar on his bad ankle. He comes flying down the left side, outrunning the entire defense and putting that perfect ball into the box against a Mexican defender. If his ankle was really as hurt as he said he was, obviously, you and I, we all know this, he's not running that fast. But you see that. You see the pure speed of Neymar, that he comes cruising down the sideline and ultimately is the reason that play works out so well as it does.
I think, Baxter, you're neglecting the hero narrative here, that Neymar miraculously recovered.
He rose above. Yes.
You're neglecting the hero narrative.
Wouldn't it be funny if these guys are actually all incredibly hurt as they are, but just like their shoes actually prove to be, massive healing objects that allows them to bounce back so quickly?
It's the magic frozen spray is what it comes down to. I mean, we see this in all the other sports too. I mean, they come out with this random aerosol cannon and they spray this white mist on your leg, and suddenly you can do backflips and cartwheels. But let's be honest. Soccer shoes are designed to be the thinnest, lightest, most flimsy thing possible, but still give you the most control. Those that make soccer cleats have the weirdest job in the world, I feel like, because they want a shoe that weighs like less than 0.2 ounces, but can also, form to your foot and have incredible grip and traction. But like, you're not defending your ankle if somebody steps on your foot. Your foot's basically shot at that point. So it is going to hurt. I totally agree with that. But I don't feel like we see this in the NFL, do we? Or in the NBA, guys are getting stepped on left and right, and they're not riling on the ground as much. Maybe I'm just watching the wrong sports, but I feel like it's always my biggest frustration, and the floppers as well too. And I feel people always come to me too, like when the World Cup is on, like, oh, the floppers are back on. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Okay, I'm like, it's part of the game, which is sad to say that it has now become part of the game.
I think it's pure cocaine in that aerosol can that they're spraying. I think that's why the guys are so
numbs the whole area. You just feel a thing and you just run on air for a while.
So, Baxter, the host nation, Russia, they have surprised a lot of people.
Yes.
They surprised people by getting out of their group with Uruguay, and especially with Egypt, who had one of the better players in the world in Mohamed Salah, granted not at full health. But Russia is in, and Russia is now into the quarterfinal round after beating Spain on a couple of miraculous saves by Akinfeev in net.
Yes.
We have a shot against Croatia.
I think Croatia has been this one team this entire tournament that I don't think has ever blinked. I think Denmark got them to that point where all of a sudden Croatia was like, "Ooh, okay, this is a little bit more difficult than we wanted." But Croatia blew through the group stages, and now you're in this situation where we saw this. Was it the 2002 World Cup? I believe whenever South Korea and all of them helped host the World Cup. I think that was 2002. I could be wrong. But either way, we saw that when South Korea was going farther in the tournament, the host nation, it's going to be harder to beat them the longer they're in the tournament because more and more and more fans are going to come to the games, and it's going to just be this massive rally cry. Croatia has their work cut out for them. Regardless if on paper, Croatia against Russia, Croatia is the better team. And I don't know if anybody can really, honestly, aside from maybe your brother, Max, look at it and say, of course Russia's the better team. But you look at these two squads, Croatia should win this game, but because it's in Russia, because Russia continues to pull the upsets, because Russia is now riding this wave of beating Spain, Croatia beat Denmark. That's not really a big motivational booster to say we can do this. You beat Denmark, good for you. You're supposed to beat Denmark. Russia beat Spain. That was one of the projected top 2 or 3 teams to win the World Cup. Russia has the advantage in this game. As much as it pains me to say that, I could see them still winning this game, and Croatia, the team I think should win the game, likely won't because of this nation backing Russia, and Russia, I think, surprising so many people now.
And just to point out to you, Baxter, you are correct. It was the 2002 World Cup, which was hosted by Korea and Japan. South Korea ended up finishing 4th. Brazil won their 5th title that year. Let's use that as a transition to ask about Brazil's chances in the next round to get their 6th championship, with the host nation also going far in this year's tournament.
Yeah, see, Brazil, I think, is still out to prove a lot. Obviously, I mean, how do you look at a team like Brazil? They beat Mexico. I'm still in the firm camp that Mexico, I think, was still beaten up from Sweden. Think about it. Mexico lost 3-0 to Sweden in the final game of the group stage, and they now go and lose 2-0 to Brazil. So Mexico had a chip on their shoulder hoping to beat Brazil, but Mexico was never going to beat Brazil. So Brazil did what they were supposed to do. They took care of business. Now they have to take on a Belgium team. Belgium proved for the first 50-plus minutes-ish, 55 to 59 minutes, that they are beatable. And Japan had 2 obviously incredible goals to score and finally beat, Courtois, but still, it's something special. And Japan said, listen, we can do this. So that worries me. If Brazil and Belgium get into a track meet, I like Belgium, though. That's the thing, because Belgium was able to match the athleticism of Japan and say, all right, we may not be as fast, but we are very technically gifted. And I think that's ultimately where the speed and the strength of Belgium is going to just try to outweigh the technical and speedy side of Brazil. This is probably going to be one of those games that goes to extra time and might end up being decided by penalty kicks, unfortunately. But I think this is where Brazil's road comes to an end, is because the powerhouse of Belgium, if they can not fall asleep for the first 55 to 60 minutes.
Baxter, real quick before we end this segment, who is your favorite team moving forward now in the World Cup? We know that can change from week to week, game to game, but now seeing the matchups that we have and the form that teams are in, who's your favorite to go on and win this one now?
Well, my 3 favorite teams are not in the tournament anymore, unfortunately. The U.S. and Italy are a different story, and then Spain lost, obviously. So I've been sitting around trying to figure out who the heck to cheer for, or have a favorite moving forward, and I keep coming back to France and England. I know a lot will be telling about England as well too, but I mean France, for me, I think is in the right position to go 4-3 against Argentina. I think is a big deal. So. I'm really in the France camp right now, and I feel like they have a good opportunity to get to the World Cup. But I also know that their side of the bracket is going to be far more difficult than the flip side of the bracket, depending on what everything looks like with the Sweden-Switzerland game and Colombia-England as well.
All right, Baxter, thank you again for joining us today on this World Cup. And remember, everyone, also on the Public House Media, you can listen to Your Soccer Passport, where you can hear about my brother and his crazy hair and his crazy travels to Russia. All right, Baxter, again, thank you for sticking with us. Remember, everyone, we've got more coming up. Is the NBA good for sports? Is anything good for basketball anymore? We'll talk about that and some more when we come back on the Cheap Seats presented here on Squadcast.
This is Daniel Poppy, host of How to Write Good here on Public House Media. I just want to thank you for listening to the following broadcast brought to you by Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope that you'll come check out my show, How to Write Good, the writing show that is not about writing. A new show of How to Write Good comes out every Wednesday, so don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of How to Write Good. Again, thanks for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
What's up, everybody? This is Christian Heimel, host of Press Row here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Press Row, where we talk about the biggest issues in sports with the analysts, experts, and reporters who cover them. No nonsense, hard-hitting interviews on the sports topics you're talking about. A new show comes out every single Thursday. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Press Row. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
NBA teams, all they know how to do is spend money like a small country with too much money to print. Hello and welcome back, everyone, to the Cheap Seats. It is time to talk about basketball as Pink Floyd introduces us. Keith Hoehne with me here. I'm Max Wolpoff. And, oh boy, I don't understand the sport of basketball anymore. I just don't get it. I just don't.
What don't you understand about it, Max?
I don't understand. And this is one of those things that's of don't get me started, and then you just got me started. What I don't understand about basketball, how is it remotely possible for everyone to look at one team or two teams or even three teams and say, yep, I need to go there. I need to take less money to go there. I don't want to challenge them. I don't want to be part of a different team. I don't want to be the star of some other team to take them up there, up to that status. Nope. I need to join the top of the hill. I need to be part of the best team. What is it about basketball with this concentration of power? I still don't understand the sport.
You're talking about Boogie, aren't you?
I'm very much talking about them. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I was in the middle of calling a baseball game with a friend of mine. We're about to come back from a commercial break. The news breaks, and I throw it to him to open it up, and he's so shaken. We cannot talk about baseball for most of that half inning. Like, we spent most of the half inning talking about how this just was crazy and this was so bad, and at this cheap of a deal, why didn't this team at least try? And basically nothing makes sense anymore. We all think that, wow, basketball went from a sport I watch in June to maybe a sport I'll watch in May.
Why won't you want to watch? The one thing that I find amazing is that why wouldn't you want to watch basketball? I think, obviously the Warriors are stacked. But they've been stacked for the last 4 or 5 years. And so they've added another piece to the puzzle, fine. But this is a team that was already good with or without Boogie. So why does one more addition of a superstar to a team filled with superstars affect your decision to watch even more?
Oh, I've already made my decision, Keith. I don't want to watch a single NBA game next year. Why? Because it's like a WWE. I already know the outcome.
Come on.
Oh, write down right now. Who are your Final Four in basketball? Final Four teams, 2 in the West, 2 in the East. Who is it?
I am going with Boston and Philly in the East. And I am going with Golden State and Houston.
And this is where it's a problem. Because you have at least three teams to choose from. maybe 4 out west. That's where things start to go wrong. Like, can you really pick between the new Lakers with LeBron James, Houston when they're keeping their core together, and Oklahoma City, who looks like they're making a decent run at keeping things the same?
So it's too predictable. That's what you don't like about it. It's too predictable.
It is so predictable. You know that Spider-Man meme where a guy in a Spider-Man outfit is pointing at Spider-Man and that Spider-Man's pointing at the guy in the Spider-Man outfit? That is the NBA pointing at the WWE. It's predetermined at this point. We already know who the champion's going to be. Why should we watch the sport? Why should I read the rest?
I will like to point out that just as many teams have won the Stanley Cup in the past 3 years as teams have won the NBA Finals in the last 3 years.
Yeah, but at least with the Stanley Cup, it was a surprise when certain teams won. Like this year's Washington Capitals, honestly, they were not expected to win. They were not pegged to win. And yeah, okay, fine. I get it. Chicago, that was obnoxious. Pittsburgh, obnoxious. LA, it got a little old. It's been so stupid the last few years to watch the concentration of power in the NBA go from team to team with a superstar. And this year, that's LeBron James going to the Los Angeles Lakers.
Now I'm gonna call you out here though, Max, and I want an honest answer. I want an honest answer. We're all kind of, and now I'm not as for it as I seem. I just kind of want to play the devil's advocate and get you all riled up here. But would you be as concerned if this concentration of power was in, say, Washington, D.C. with the Wizards?
I'd be happy about it, but I would still be concerned.
All right, so so you're willing to admit that you would have a much different outlook on this if this were your team?
Yeah. Honestly, I would have an easier time accepting it, but I would still look at it and say, man, this is kind of shenanigans. This is garbage.
But, with the salary cap, it's not the team with the most money just being able to get any player they want. Obviously, there's a salary cap in the NBA, so it's not like it's not necessarily the Lakers.
Let's not lie about this. There's no salary cap. It's a luxury tax. You want a real salary cap? Let's have the NHL model. Hard salary cap. Nobody spends over it. You spend over it, you get penalized next season. Thank you very much. I will take that.
Because the concentration of power in Pittsburgh has completely swayed over this last 5 years.
Okay. There was a time so many years ago when Pittsburgh sports writers were panicking that they weren't going to be able to keep Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and Fleury. Guess what? They kept them all. They went on multiple Stanley Cups runs. They had Fleury taken in the expansion draft, and now they're gearing up to go for it again. That is a league where you make it work. Just make it work. In basketball, it's silly money. It's silly season. This is about as dumb as it's ever gotten. And it keeps getting stupider every year. I'm not watching a single basketball game. No, I'm not. Can't change my mind. Change my mind, Keith.
So I'm going to change your mind by saying you don't. You already. There's not a team that can beat Golden State. Not a team. Wouldn't you want to watch to see what team can beat Golden State?
Nope.
What about LeBron wearing that gorgeous purple and yellow? What about that?
Nope.
You don't want to see LeBron as a Laker.
No, I don't.
I think it's great. I think it's awesome.
I am not a fan of this basketball season. And listen, we have a poll question that you can go to on our Facebook page. Everyone will already know my answer the second I say this question. Are the Golden State Warriors good for basketball?
I don't think one team being great year after year you can say is bad for a sport. I want to know if everybody was asking the same question when you had the Lakers and the Celtics of the 80s. I want to know because we all look back, we weren't born yet, but everybody looks back at those times like, wow, those matchups were great. You had the Celtics out of the East and you had the Lakers out of the West, and everyone knew both teams were going to make it to the finals, and we were all just waiting for that grudge match. And oh, what an amazing time with Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and what an outstanding rivalry. And everybody looks back at that like, wow, that was really the golden age of basketball, when you still had the same 1 to 2 teams coming out of the East and West. And now all of a sudden it's bad for the sport. Why?
Keith, I used to be of that opinion. I used to be of the opinion this is a dynasty-driven sport. The Celtics had theirs. The Lakers had theirs. The Pistons had a short run. The Wizards managed to squeeze one in there. I'm not disagreeing with you that this is a dynasty-driven sport. However, live as it happens, I have come to the conclusion that it is not good for my entertainment value, and I can be better entertained watching a different sport at the same exact time. No, I'm not watching a single game of basketball this year, not even playoffs. I don't care. This basketball season is already over for me. Golden State can already print their championship t-shirts. I've had enough.
All right, honestly, do you go to any Wizards game? Are you not going to go to one Washington Wizards game this year?
If I'm offered tickets, I will opt to go somewhere else.
Get out of here.
Nope. If I'm offered Celtics tickets, because again, I'm a student at Boston University. If I am offered Celtics tickets, I will physically pay the difference to go to a Bruins game.
I don't buy that for a second. I think you're a dirty, rotten liar, man.
Okay. No. Keith, you want me to put it in my Twitter bio of Max Wolpoff will not watch a single NBA game this season?
I'm calling you out wholeheartedly on that. LeBron is going to be in prime time on ESPN, his first game with the Lakers. I guarantee you tune in.
Nope. I am going to be watching something else.
All right.
I hear Dateline's pretty good.
All right. All right. Let's move on from the NBA here into let's talk about the NHL quick here, Matt. Obviously, it's the free agency in the NHL. Something that you know a ton about. So let us know your thoughts about the NHL free agency and how things have gone thus far in it.
Boy, I'm so happy that things have been going either as predicted or a little bit crazy in the NHL. Like, honestly, John Tavares going to the Leafs wasn't a complete surprise, but the way it happened, he took less money to come home. He is taking a contract laden with signing bonuses to have lockout insurance when the next lockout eventually happens. Man, I'm excited about this upcoming NHL season because it at least looks like some teams in the bottom of the league last year have a fighting chance of getting into the playoffs.
Now, the one team that I've always cared about, that I've been big on, is Detroit. Detroit has not had a product worth watching on the ice since they lost to the Pittsburgh Penguins in the Stanley Cup Finals. What can Detroit do, Max? Because I'm just making this about the team that I like now. What can Detroit do to get a more competitive product out on the ice this offseason during this free agency to make them competitive again?
Well, they could have started with not signing Jonathan Bernier, but they've already done that. I'm sorry, buddy. I've got a funny feeling that Detroit's going to be unwatchable again next year.
Yeah, I think they will be too. I think that I think they're a couple of off seasons away from really being a challenging team again. But hey, it doesn't hurt to hope, right?
No, it never hurts to hope. I mean, listen, if the Washington Capitals can trade Brooks Orpik's contract, anything is possible.
All right, so
and honestly.
So quick,
the
then,
defense.
Before you go into it, Washington Capital. What are completely early for this? What are their chances of repeating?
Could you say that one more
time? What are
time?
their chances of repeating, hoisting that cup once again in 2019?
Ooh, I am going to give it in honor of the man who started the chant. About 77% chance. TJ Oshie back to back, back to back, back to back. I am all over this. Man, they've loaded up. They've got a cheap fourth-line center in Nick Dowd, potentially competing with Travis Boyd. I'm getting so excited about the fourth line. That's how exciting the Capitals are. They've kept their core together. Their goaltender is still amazing. I'm ready. Give me another championship run. Let's go.
Are you saying, Max, I'm hearing you say not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6?
Nope. You will not hear me say that. No.
To quote the player that you're so fond of.
Oh, don't get me started.
All right, this has been a great. So we've talked about the NBA, we've talked about the NHL. Coming back in the fourth segment, we have talked about Cam Chancellor. Is he retiring? Does it look like he is? We'll see if he decides to come back or not. And we're going to go into the NCAA football realm. It is July. It means that we are getting started and ramped up for the college football season. But first, we're going to take a quick break. This is the Cheese Seats on Squadcast on Public House Media. We will be back with more after this.
Hi, this is Emily.
This is Lindsay.
And this is Elizabeth, co-hosts of Beauties and Headcanons here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Once you are done with this episode, we hope you'll come check out our show, Beauties and Headcanons, where we talk nerdy to you about fandoms, fan fiction, and all pop culture for nerds that you can think of. A new show comes out every Friday.
Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you never miss an episode of Beauties and Headcanons. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Kim Meyer, the host of Choose to Rise here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Choose to Rise, where we talk about living with positive mindsets, how to increase our confidence, building our faith, and living out our life on purpose. A new show comes out via podcast every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And if you want to catch the episode live instead, stop by Public House Media around 6:45 Central Standard Time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday as well. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Choose to Rise. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Welcome back to the Cheap Seats on Public House Media, presented here on Squadcast. I'm Max Wolpoff. Keith Hoehne is beside me. And Keith, I know you've been needling me a little bit here, but it's time to get some serious news in. Cam Chancellor, part of the Legion of Boom of the old Seattle Seahawks and of their Super Bowl championship, has decided that his NFL career might be over.
Yeah, that was some interesting news that came out over the weekend. You know, he came out with a tweet, and everybody is asking, what the tweet meant, and everybody is, they're wondering, is he retiring? Although he never used the term and the word retire in a series of tweets, it seemed to indicate that he was moving on from the sport. And it's if it's true, wow, that's quite surprising at 30 years old. You usually don't see guys retire this young, especially on the defensive side of the ball, the guys that are doing the hitting. A lot of times you might see a running back's career might only last 9 years because you can only take so many hits at the line for so long and remain durable. But Cam Chancellor, at his age, at the position that he's played, at the height that he's played it at, if this is true, then wow. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, there's a lot to go around in the NFL with injury scares, and Cam Chancellor suffered quite seriously some serious stuff as he was going through things. A neck injury is nothing to mess around with. However, it's not really certain what he's going to do, because at least contractually, he is owed money with this from the Seahawks. His 2018 salary is fully guaranteed, and he's still got a few years on his extension that he signed just last year with Seattle. Like, this isn't something to be taken lightly if he retires. Seattle will have freed up some money, but they will have lost quite the presence.
But it's difficult to talk about money and health in the same sentence, because you think how much is the money really worth? And for Cam Chancellor, it seems like not a lot, or at least he's made enough, obviously, where he can walk away at this age and at this time and not look back. I mean, he said it, quote, to walk away from the game by choice is one thing, to walk away from the game because of the risk of paralysis is another. I think that's a pretty telling quote right there. And this is a guy who, give him credit, at 30 years old, he knows that he's looking ahead at 40. He wants to be able to walk at 40 years old. And I'm not so sure that this isn't the start of something much bigger, and a lot of other players paying attention to this, where we might see a lot of younger guys retire at an age like this.
This is sadly the way and where football is going. Like, this is that final destination. This is where players who are good, players who have mileage left, opt out and say, I can't risk my body any longer. This is about as hard as it gets as a player. You've trained your whole life to play this one sport. And you get to the highest level, you win the championship of your sport, and now you have to walk away because you need your future. You need to protect your best asset, and that's your body.
Yeah, and this is obviously a development of all the research that has come with concussions and all injuries of that matter over the last decade, really. And now, players have no excuse, and nobody has an excuse to say, well, I wasn't aware of the health concerns that went with playing this game at a high level for so long. And hopefully also this can also bring change for how young players manage their money, because before, everybody thought that I'm going to have this great big long career that's going to span from age 22 to 40, and after making millions of dollars for 18 years or so, I'll be set either way. And now, it's not out of the realm of possibility to think that, even if you're going to play the game at a very high level, this might only be a 9-year career for you, and you have to take care of your money if you want that to last further on. So if this is going to have a positive impact, I think it might be one that, can teach young guys to manage their money much more responsibly at a young age.
That would be a positive development for this sport for sure. And this is another sport like any other, which is veteran laden with their salaries. Like the further you get in experience, the more money you're going to be making. But as the average NFL career might shrink by a year or two, got to start to wonder when those rookie contracts, which tend to last 2 to 3 years, might just be 1-year rookie deals followed by potential for big earnings.
That's a great point, Matt. I really didn't think of that going into this, but that's a great point. If the career expectancy of these guys shrinks, then contract negotiations and the term of deals will also shrink. I think that's a great point.
And with injuries, there's always been the problem of disclosing medical information. Now, this is where we get to switch from the NFL to the NCAA, where the Big Ten, in the wake of a Supreme Court decision legalizing sports gambling, has asked the college sports governing body to put out a national injury reporting system.
And whatever the Big Ten wants, I think, really guides the NCAA and their decision-making process. The Big Ten is so powerful when it comes to making change. They're very rich. They have a lot of powerful guys and a lot of powerful markets. They have besides LA, they have every major market that you could think of: Chicago, New York, Washington. And when you have big money guys in big money areas, wanting change, I think it's only a matter of time until it happens. But obviously, this is a result of the decision to, as you said, legalize gambling, across the states. And it's never been a requirement for these guys to disclose, what their players are dealing with. And obviously for good reason, for pure competitive balance, no coach wants to share that. And I think that's the big pushback they're going to get from this. No coach wants to tell, Urban Meyer does not want to tell Jim Harbaugh, one of our guys is banged up and might not do, so well, that last week in November.
You're right. And I think even with the National Injury Report thing, that does not at all negate coaches and players gaming it or potentially trying to fudge it a little bit or saying someone's questionable when really they're definitely going to play and you're just trying to throw off the game plan a little bit. There's going to be some shenanigans and some gamesmanship when it comes to this, even if it is just a requirement by the NCAA. Don't expect this to be an altruistic thing. No. These coaches are competitive. Every loss could mean their job.
And you already have received some backlash from coaches, and Mike Leach, I think has said how why would I agree to do that? In what sense would it make for me to disclose how my players are to my opponent? I think that was along the lines of what Mike Leach said, but he says a lot of things. But you can't tell me that these coaches haven't thought that this would be a possibility for the last 20 years, whether gambling was legalized or not. I think I think it's responsible to disclose, to a certain extent, the health of some of these players, just talking about health in general and, and how these players are. And I think to a certain extent, it will help lead to making these athletic departments and these coaches a little more responsible and a little more accountable for how they handle it. Because if you're going to report an injury early in the week on Monday, that seems like this guy is going to be out for 3 weeks. But then if, you all of a sudden you lose a guy in practice and you want to really rush this other guy back, it's something very hard to backpedal from if you think that one player is going to be gone for 3 weeks, but, then trying to rush him back for the sake of a W, sometimes, putting the health of a player at risk. We hear these stories all the times from former players. So I think it could also help make these coaches a little more accountable with these players and their injuries.
I think the UCLA athletic director, Dan Guerrero, probably said the sentiment best. The coaches won't like it, but if everyone does it, right. I mean, why not?
And
if everyone does, I think that's really what
we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Definitely, this is not the first and only thing that will result as this gambling thing evolves. They've already been talking about in the state of Virginia with Marshall and West Virginia. They've already established a deal with the state about what they're going to get from the gambling proceeds and things like that. So this is just the tip of the iceberg of change in college athletics as a result of gambling. So it will be very interesting. Max, let's jump right in to Wacky Wednesday. What do you have for us? And we can also talk about some interesting things that have happened on the 4th of July. This is the 4th of July, after all, very, very patriotic. First of all, give me your Wild Wednesday, and let's then talk about some things that have happened in the past on 4th of July.
All right. I have a suggestion on this Wild Wednesday, and this comes courtesy of my friend and broadcast partner, PJ, whom I love and respect dearly, but boy, do I think he is right on the button here. I love this idea, and it might actually convince me to watch a basketball game this year.
I'm all for it if it's going to get you to watch the NBA. Let's hear it.
All right, so here's the scenario. The Golden State Warriors make the playoffs. Duh. They're playing, pick a Western Conference team. I'm going to pick the Utah Jazz. Let's say, so the playoffs are normally a 7-game series, right? My friend PJ, his new suggestion, make the series a 4-game series. Golden State must sweep in order to advance. Meanwhile, the Jazz, All they got to do is win one game,
and then they advance in one game.
Yep.
So it's a 4-1 advantage, really in the opposite direction for the Jazz. They only have the the Warriors have to go undefeated in the playoffs, or they're immediately eliminated by whatever team beats them. And then do the playoffs go back to a normal best of 7 for the rest of those games and for the rest of those teams?
I think only the championship can be a best of 7 with the Warriors. Other than that, nothing changes, but only the Warriors. Because it's just not, it's so absurdly cartoonish that they are going to be this good. They might break their own damn wins record they set a few seasons ago. This new playoff format, bear with me, Keith, would convince me to at least watch one game of basketball this season.
That's pretty wild. That's
Listen, I love my friend PJ. I think he's right on the button here. Change my mind.
That would definitely be interesting. I don't know if I can change your mind with the aspect that this would be a very interesting way to go about it. But let me just ask you this: and what does the record have to be for Golden State in order to get that playoff format? Do they have to win 74 games?
Nope.
Or what?
Nope. They just have to.
What
make
if they
playoffs.
go 50 and 22? 50 and
I don't
50
care.
And 32. No, you don't care.
Nope.
All right, fair enough. We'll see how it goes. Max went completely the other way. Didn't take something out of the news. Max just said, "Hey, here's something that would be wild. Check it out."
Here's the wild idea a friend of mine had last night. I love his idea.
It's not a bad idea. One thing that I would say is pretty wild. It's not very wild, but it's part of a much bigger problem, I would say, in sports. I don't want to go too deep with this Wild Wednesday, but Marcus Hooker, a freshman safety for Ohio State, and he's the younger brother of Colt safety Malik Hooker, has been charged with a DUI in Pennsylvania. Has said he's a freshman safety for Ohio State. He was 18, and he was stopped by police. Also being charged was having a high rate of alcohol in the system and a purchase of alcohol by a minor. All this thing, disregard of a traffic lane and careless driving and failure to use blinkers and everything. So basically, you have this young 18-year-old driving erratically a month and a half before the season really starts, and something that you see every year, and it's just it does not surprise me, but it's wild for me to think that these kids at 18 years old, you're going to such a prestigious, not only athletic program, but school as Ohio State, and you're making decisions like this so closely to when the season starts. And no matter how many times it happens, I'm never going to say I'm surprised, but it's always, pun intended, wild for me to think that this would be the decision-making process of someone.
Man, you'd think that for all the stories of so-and-so got into legal trouble of this variety and had blank taken away from him or her, you would think that all these stories would serve as deterrents or some measure of education. Like, maybe I shouldn't go for this activity. Maybe I shouldn't try to do this. But nope, they still have it.
And like I said, it's a little more disappointing of a Wild Wednesday for me, but I saw it in the news. I'm like, golly, another young kid with his future ahead of him. Scholarship, you can make whatever you want to out of your time at a university like that with an athletic scholarship. You can really try to become the best athlete possible. You have a scholarship to get a free education. So when you're done, you can leave with a degree from a great university with no debt. And you put all of that in jeopardy because you drive under the influence. What are you doing drinking so much at 18 anyway? I mean, come on, man. You wait a little bit.
That's a fantastic question.
Anyways, let's end this on a little bit of a higher note. Rather than Max complaining about the NBA and me complaining about the decisions of young kids, let's talk about some memorable 4th of July moments that have happened in the history of sports. Max, what do you got?
Well, I think we can all look back on Lou Gehrig's fond speech in 1939. Like, there's a lot to be said for what Lou Gehrig did despite battling ALS. And he really personified a lot of what it meant to be a baseball player. And the whole sport at the time really came out for him. But fast forwarding to the 80s, holy cow, John McEnroe beat Bjorn Borg at Wimbledon, which was huge.
Yeah, that was a really big deal. And let's touch on baseball for a second here. Everybody says that baseball is America's pastime. What's more American than Nolan Ryan notching 3,000 strikeouts in 1980 at only 33? By the way, he had a long career, and he got 3,000 strikeouts at the age of 33. I thought that was incredible. Obviously, retiring with 5,700 strikeouts, notching 3,000 at the age of 33. I thought was pretty incredible.
Man, in today's swing for the fences MLB, the strikeout rate is up for every pitcher. I don't think we're ever going to see someone of the dominance of Nolan Ryan. And if we do, I will come back on the show and admit that I am wrong.
And let's round it out here with a USA Soccer one. They lost a heartbreaker in the World Cup to Brazil back in 1994. It was in the United States. They've been considered a team that really put USA Soccer on the map. Hopefully, they can get back to the World Cup, sometime here, as USA Soccer has gone down quite a bit. But that's a huge deal, with Brazil, the team that they were that year, and the team that Brazil really has always been since Pele has played for the national team. A United States team on their home turf, coming so close to beating a national power like that, was really something to watch.
And hey, the U.S. is going to be hosting at least most of the World Cup in 2026.
Most of it, but I've said USA a couple times, and everybody is so quick to remind me. North America, Keith. It's not the United States. It's North America.
Okay. U.S. hosts most of it, though. There are going to be 80 matches. 60 of them will be held in the U.S. It's basically the American World Cup.
It'll be really interesting to watch, and hopefully within that time, the United States can get a team back on the field that's worth competing.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to head out and I'm going to enjoy some baseball weather. Keith,
I'm going to enjoy it,
July
Max.
4th,
I'm about to grab a beer out of the fridge right now, about to put those steaks on the grill. Man, it's going to be a great 4th of July. You have a great one watching the Nationals, and hey, we'll talk again next week, right?
Yeah, next week. Yeah, it's another one of those silly weeks that I've got to work early in the morning and I'm unable to do next week. Again, I apologize. However, after next week, I should be fine.
All right. Well, we'll see who will come out of the bullpen to finish the late innings for you next week then, and see how they can do. Maybe, in that week break, you'll have a little bit of a better attitude about the NBA moving forward, huh?
Nope, not happening. Nope.
All right, Max.
Keith is just going to keep needling me about the NBA. We're going to come back on the show, and there will be some basketball topic, and I'll be like, yep, I haven't seen it.
I'm going to do nothing but talk about the NBA and talk about how much I disrespect every team coming out of the Washington, D.C. market. That's what I'm going to do for the rest of the show, because
oh, boy. Oh, Keith and
Max,
I are not going to be friends.
I'm not happy until you're unhappy, Max.
And with that, I think it's time to end this episode and stop the hate train. Thank you for joining us on this July 4th. We hope you enjoy your Independence Day. If you're not celebrating American Independence Day, that's all right. Take the day and celebrate something else. Celebrate yourself. Hey, you've enjoyed this time. You had a hard week. Enjoy it with your best friends up here in the cheap seats. We've presented this broadcast to you on Squadcast exclusively on the Public House Media Network. Thanks for joining us.